Hello everyone, the Super Reviewers here, and today I'm doing a Legend of Zelda timeline, my theory of it, and this is also a response to Nintendo Fangirls giveaway. For the giveaway purposes, I'm going to mention that I do have a 3DS and a Wii, and I do live in the USA, but I will talk all about how much I like the Legend of Zelda series and all of that after I'm done with my theory of the timeline. As you've seen here, there's over a dozen Zelda games, and I've always wanted to sort them out, and that's what I'm going to be doing today. But I would like to say that I haven't played all of them, but I've done my research on pretty much all of them that I would know them enough to do this timeline. So I'm just saying that as a slight warning before I begin. And I really don't want this timeline to be taken too seriously. No one really knows the real timeline. Everyone just has theories like this. So I really want to do it for fun and just to show how much I like the series. And maybe later in the future when I have played all the games, I can do a more complicated timeline later. So with that said, let's begin. So instead of starting off with what I think is first in the timeline, I'm going to start off with the original Legend of Zelda and go onward from there. Coming out in 1987, this game was completely new and offered a big adventure for many people. It was a simple game, but later evolved into a huge, big adventure. This isn't what I think is first in the timeline, but we will come back to this game later. So let's go forward next to Zelda 2. Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, came out the year after The Legend of Zelda came out. Now, we know for sure this is a direct sequel, because in the game manual it states that this game took place several seasons after the first game. So we know this statement right here is definitely true. It's been said and proven by the creators themselves, but we're not done with this game yet. This game showed us that there is such thing as more than one Zelda. That told us that because this game told us what the true original Legend of Zelda is. The Legend of Zelda is that the Princess Zelda was put to sleep by an evil wizard who was with Ganon looking for the Triforce. So she was set to sleep and Link has to rescue her. So after Link rescued her, in honor of the princess, they now named every princess after her Zelda. Other than this game being really different than the first one, there isn't that much more to say about it. We know it is the direct sequel to Zelda 1, but next things get more complicated. Now we get a prequel to the Legend of Zelda series, but the problem is we don't know where it takes place as a prequel. We don't know if it's a direct prequel or if it's just really far back that we don't even know how far it is. Now, this is definitely once again a prequel. It has been proven and stated as Zelda 2 was, but as I said, we don't know when it takes place as a prequel. But this game still told us many, many new things. The biggest thing definitely was now that we know there's more than one Link. The title even states this, a link to the past. Now, that could also mean a link as, like, a connection or remembering something, but we know definitely this is not the same Link in Zelda from Zelda 1 and 2. Now, this was a different game, as in setting, but it really did go back to its roots of the first Zelda, but like the first Legend of Zelda, we really cannot say that much about it until we go on to the other games. But there is one more thing that we can mention, and that is the Master Sword. That is a big deal in this game, but we get more out of it in the next game, Ocarina of Time. This is one of the Legend of Zelda games that I haven't played, so also please bear with me for these parts of the timeline. Now, Link's Awakening was the first portable adventure for the series, and it was also the first completely different adventure. No Hyrule and no Ganon, and even a surprise twist ending that make it probably irrelevant to the whole series. Even though it may seem irrelevant, this game is still one of the most highly discussed places in the timeline even today. Even though it might not have anything to do with the story, people are still wondering where it belongs and this is definitely one of the most discussed places. But for right now, I'm going to put it after A Link to the Past, because that makes the most sense so far. I don't think it would work if I put it after the original Legend of Zelda, because you can tell there is really no room for all this to happen between just one game, and it can't be after Zelda 2, because there the whole legend pretty much ended so far, and they've stated that this is a prequel, and they haven't probably thought of any other games coming up, such as Ocarina of Time, so I think its best placement for now would be after A Link to the Past. So this, what you're looking at right now, is what we got so far, and what most people would believe if you ask them. But this is not completely true. We don't know if this is true or not, but this is what most people think. But later, everything changed when the next game came out. Ocarina of Time was the first 3D Zelda game and came out in 1998, with many people calling it the best game of all time. And I somewhat agree. But now let's talk about the timeline for it. This game just possibly messed every single person's theory up and just tossed it aside. Mainly because of the ending. The ending just changed the whole series forever. But before we get to the ending, let's talk about the game itself and how it fits into the timeline. Many people believe this was the first game, and later in an interview with Nintendo Power, Shigeru Miyamoto stated his thoughts on the timeline so far. In the interview, Shigeru Miyamoto stated that Ocarina of Time is first, then Zelda 1 and 2, and then A Link to the Past would be last, with Link's Awakening fitting anywhere in the timeline. Many fans got confused because they thought A Link to the Past was a prequel, but this was later fixed up in another interview stating that it was a translation error and A Link to the Past is after Ocarina of Time. This game was obviously first because it discussed all the origins of Ganon, and it also kept continuing the story of the Master Sword that was first appearing in A Link to the Past, and the Master Sword had a huge impact for the game's conclusion, which now I will talk about. Now, we all know how it worked in Ocarina of Time. When Link pulled the Master Sword, he became an adult 7 years later, and you could travel between back and forth. But the ending after defeating Ganon was what really changed it. This moment right here with Zelda and Link talking in the future completely changed the timeline. This is the big turning point right here. When Zelda plays the ocarina right here, so she can let Link live the past 7 years of his life, this right here creates one of the two branching timelines that start to happen. Link goes back and tells the young Princess Zelda of what all about Ganon and his evil plots. So then he gets arrested early on, and Hyrule is free from him for a while. This creates the adult timeline. Now there's still the future where Link is gone because he got sent back to being a kid. And there's no Link in this timeline, and this creates the child timeline because it goes on after this, which you will now see. Now, I've already drawn out the future of the timeline here, and I will discuss them. But I wrote Hyrule A and Hyrule B instead of child and adult timeline to avoid confusion, where Hyrule A is where he gets sent back and lives his childhood, and Hyrule B is the future where he isn't there. Now we're at the Wind Waker in Hyrule B. Now, this game confused many people in the timeline, but I'll tell you why it fits. Now, Ganon has escaped from his seal, and the gods wanted to protect the land, so they just pretty much flooded Hyrule, and that created the Great Sea in this game. This game takes place centuries after what happened in Ocarina of Time, and this is another Link, obviously, and he's just going out to destroy Ganon once again, pretty much. After you figured it out, it's really not that hard to put this in the timeline, and it should definitely go after here, and its sequels are also very easy to place. Now, Phantom Hourglass is obviously the sequel to The Wind Waker. It's even the same Link, but more than that, there's nothing to say. But there's no Ganon, so that tells you that he was killed in the Wind Waker in this timeline. We do know now there's no Ganon in Hyrule B. So it even says in Spirit Tracks, in this game you fight Bellum, and it goes on that way, and there's no Master Sword or anything like that. Now at the end of Phantom Hourglass, Link and Tetra, who is the Zelda in these games, have found a new land known as Hyrule. And that is the new Hyrule after the Great Flood, and that's where this game takes place. Some other notices that show that this game takes place after Phantom Hourglass is in the beginning you see Nico, who is like 80 years old, and he was a kid in the other game. And that is the full Hyrule B. Now to the complicated part. Now, next is Majora's Mask, which is the strangest and darkest game of the series, and the second game that I haven't played in the Legend of Zelda series, but even though it is still very easy to put in this timeline. It is definitely the first game in Hyrule A, because Link is out searching for Navi, who he lost in Ocarina of Time. So this automatically puts it right after Ocarina of Time. Other than that, there isn't really too much relevance to the rest of the series, so I guess we can go on. Next up, I would say, would be Twilight Princess, where Ganon escaped his imprisonment and came back. And this is a new Link, most likely. And I think the next part would be the most confusing part in the timeline, including this. But I think this is the best place to put it, right here. Now, next would be Four Swords Adventure, because it talks about Ganon and Vati, the new enemy, and it also shows how Ganon gets his trident that appears in A Link to the Past. Next up, as I stated, would be A Link to the Past. After this, I would put in the Oracle games. Either could be going on at the same time, and at the end, it shows Link leaving either island on a boat, which leads us to the next game. Here I would put Link's Awakening, after Link would crash on an island, and then after that he leaves the island and sails back toward Hyrule, which goes to the original series. Now here, as Link came back to Hyrule, he found out that all the citizens have moved north, and Ganon has taken Zelda one more time, and he has to face him for the final time, and he finally kills him with the silver arrow, and Ganon is gone. Now we know that Zelda 2 ends Hyrule A. This is the complete timeline for Hyrule A. Sorry guys, I forgot to mention Minish Cap, which I believe is first, not because of the hat, but because in the beginning you see that the monsters are released from the chest in the opening cutscene. I could keep going on and on talking about Minish Cap, but I've ran out of my time limit for the video, so sorry about that. Now that we're done with the timeline, let's go on to the other stuff. A lot of people may ask where Skyward Sword's gonna go. We know that's gonna go before Ocarina of Time, so that's all I can really say right now. Now more about the giveaway and how much I really like Zelda. Well, I've been playing Zelda for a really long time. My first game was Minish Cap, because I'm one of the younger gamers. I didn't play the older games, but I did get Ocarina of Time 3D. And as I said, the games I haven't played were Majora's Mask, A Link to the Past, Wind Waker, and the Oracle games. And that's the reason I mainly did this giveaway, so I could find a possibility to get one of those games. But even if I don't, it would be great to just get any prize. But it's also a good thing to try. And I also wanted to tell many people of my theory of the timeline. And I hope a lot more people enjoy Zelda in the future and keep playing it. So I'd like to thank everyone for watching and thank Nintendo Fangirl for doing this giveaway. And goodbye.